about the issue that I'm talking to you about. How many trustees do we have in the room? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I realize this is one more thing that you have done for the generous compensation that you receive from the freeholders of New Jersey, correct? I know because I'm a trustee. I just finished a term as chair of the board of an educational institution in North Carolina, and I was on my alma mater's board for 12 years. This is a really unique thing we do in the United States, having these boards of trustees that have fiduciary responsibility for nonprofit organizations. It's one of the things that makes us truly unique in the world higher education model. You know, most other places in the world, the government is entirely responsible for the fiduciary and policy setting mission of post-secondary higher education, not in the United States, thank goodness. But I want to reflect a little bit about why I think trustees should care about this issue of new students. One of the hardest things I've found to do is to get community colleges to look at new students, first-time entering students, as a single, unique cohort. You know, they don't have a letter on their foreheads like the scarlet letter A, okay? They're not automatically identifiable. We don't make them do certain things that identify them as new students. They don't wear beanies anymore. And we tend to think of them as just sort of blending in with other students. That's a mistake. You cannot improve their performance until you think of them as a distinct cohort. So one of the things I would hope I could get trustees to do is to occasionally ask your institutional leadership some questions about how you're faring with your new students. They are your largest cohort. You have a higher proportion of FTEs generated through the new student cohort than any other segment of your population. Some of you will remember the famous quote from the even more famous notorious bank robber Willie Sutton when asked why did he rob banks, and his answer was, that's where the money is. Well, that's where the money is here too. To the extent that you are funded in any way remotely relative to your enrollment, you receive the largest amount of your funding from the new students that you take in. And in the two-year sector, ladies and gentlemen, approximately 50% of new students are not there the following year, okay? And we're never going to increase degree attainment rates in this country unless we do better. One of the things that intrigued me about Ocean County was the fact that they perform much better than that, and they have a stunningly high transfer rate. And part of that, of course, is due to the fact that they have this very atypical partnership with a four-year institution that is physically co-located on their campus. I'm going to come back to that theme because it has to do with collaboration, which is something very hard for us Americans to do. Anyway, you trustees, I'm arguing, should be interested in this topic because that's where your college historically is least successful, okay? And you know, we don't boast about how we do with new students. I wish we could, but I'd like to see you get more to boast about. And I know that John Larson's trustees hear him boast, as he should, about their transfer rate. It's quite stunning. And I'm going to come back to transfers in a minute. Now, trustees should care about this issue because the success of new students connects to everything else you do care about. You care about your institutional retention rates, your graduation rates, even though they punish community colleges. The federal IPED system was never designed with you in mind. It was designed for the four-year boys and girls, and it makes you look terrible, and we have to change that. But you do care about those rates, and they're largely a function of what you do with your new students. You're very concerned about whether students are learning, and are they meeting their goal, are they achieving their goals. And so for all those connected reasons, I think this is an issue that belongs on your screen. Now, there's some other things that are going on in your sector that are relatively new that I think should be commanding even more trustee interest. You know, I trust, that the median age of community college students is plummeting. It's falling like a rock off a cliff. And that's happening because more students are coming to you as a first choice. And that means more middle-class students whose families are constrained financially or who have finally figured out that you're the best educational bargain in the country. and that it pays to send their children to you for a few years, and then they move on and obtain a baccalaureate degree somewhere else, or if they're at Ocean County College, they stay right there and earn one from Kane. At the same time, you're under more pressure for accountability, and you all know about that. I don't have to talk to you about that. But in other words, there are a lot of current things that are making this focus on new students, I would argue, even more relevant to the kinds of things that trustees need to care about. Now, I remember from my time on boards that, whether you're an engaged board or not, the most important thing you do in the history of any board is you choose the chief executive officer, and you work with the CEO to determine the values and the priorities and the strategic directions of your institution. And a lot of your conversations are about that. And you trustees are the ultimate source of institutional values, and you survive long term, whereas any administration is a transitory phenomenon. So I'm arguing that trustees ought to be interested in this. And there's an excerpt in your packet. There's a copy of a brief article that I co-authored for your trustee publication, the Trustee Quarterly, about the relationship between the first year and trustee accountability. Now, when I put this talk together, I thought, all right, I'm speaking to college presidents, two-year college presidents, and their trustees, and I thought I'd share with them kind of my big takeaway lessons. I've been in this work now for 44 years. And I have great difficulty holding a lucid conversation about any topic other than this. As an illustration of this, I could think of many other absurd things I've said, but this one takes the cake. About a year ago, I was picked up at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, and somebody was driving me to a campus. And we passed this huge structure, and my host said, "And that is the home of the Texas Rangers." And I looked at this, circular building that looks sort of like the Roman Colosseum, which I have seen, and I said to her, in all seriousness, "Why do the cops need a building like that?" And, she rolled her eyes, and, oh my God, another egghead. So anyway, but I was more competent when I got to the campus and opened my mouth professionally. Okay, now, your CEO, the one that you appointed and renewed and support and let him or her cry on your shoulders, they only have so many what I call legacy issues. There are only so many things they can pick as a signature topic and really leave their mark in a given presidential period. And they've got to select those legacy issues very carefully. My pitch to presidents is that they make the success of new students, this overall topic we call student success, one of their legacy issues. Larry, I think, put it very well. He said that in terms of public policy, ladies and gentlemen, the focus in your industry has been on access, getting the students in the door, right? And you have measured and reported your success based largely on enrollment numbers and increases. The focus now of federal policy and foundation giving is not on access, it's on success. He's saying it's not enough just to get them in the door. It matters what you're doing with them. So takeaway idea here for me is I want to invite you to make this one of your legacy issues. Now, you can't do that alone. And there's one person who's more important than any other, in addition to your trustees, to making student success a legacy issue. And that's the gentleman sitting right up here on my most immediate right, and I'm not referring to his political views. Oh, you are a political scientist, do I remember?
And
yes.
I'm on the other side of the spectrum.
You're on the other side of the spectrum?
Yeah, my views go from middle to left.
Oh, other side from what?
You just accused me of being, right.
Oh, no. Yes, that's what I was saying. You're not, I didn't mean it in a literal sense. Oh, Richard, I would never do that to you. This is John's chief academic officer, all right? And this is the role on any campus that is the single most central role to achieving student success. So this is an absolutely critical appointment, and that means you trustees need to be very interested in who your president puts in this role. Right, Richard? Okay. All right. Now, the first year matters. That's really, in life, you can't say enough some of the most important things. And you can't assume that people automatically know, why does the first year matter? Well, the first year matters because that's where you lose your greatest number of students. That's where students make decisions about what they want to study. That's where students make friends that they may keep for the rest of their lives. My best friend lives in Millington, New Jersey, and we made a pact when we graduated from college, we'd met the first year of college, that we would see each other at least once a year, every day of the rest of our lives, to kind of milepost our lives. He was going to drive me down here today, but he threw his back out yesterday and he literally couldn't get off the bed today. So I'm feeling sort of cheated. But the first year matters because of relationships that develop and the beginning experiences, some of them which have a lifetime impact. We're finding also the second year is of increasing influence. Ladies and gentlemen, colleges and universities lose almost as many students in the second year as they do the first year, which is really pretty unfortunate. And that means if you think you've gotten them over the hump just in the beginning experience, you really haven't. One of the things I'd really like to stress with you this afternoon is the importance of focusing on what you control. And I think you're thinking about a lot of things today that you don't control. You don't control what the man who made the cover of the Sunday New York Times magazine yesterday does. And who is that? It's the governor, absolutely. You may be able to influence it, but you don't control it. You don't necessarily control what your freeholders do. And you certainly don't control a lot of what your students do. But what you do control are institutional policies and practices. So this process that I've had the privilege of working with these two colleges with is a process that focuses on the things you do control, which are your policies and your practices. Let me give you an example of the most important policy that I've seen in my lifetime that showed that when we changed the policy, we changed the country. I came to South Carolina 2 years after the Civil Rights Act. And when I arrived, because I was white, a number of white South Carolinians would make comments to me to the effect that, well, the government changed that law and says now we have to do all these things together, but you're not going to make me do it. Well, you know what? 40-some years later, we're all doing it together, okay? The law dramatically changed American behaviors. On college campuses, policies drive behaviors. And so I would suggest, and one of the things that two campuses, Mercer and Ocean, has done, they have gone and they've done what's called a policy audit. And that's where you audit all your rules and regulations. And you ask yourselves, who put these rules into place? Is that person even still living? Okay? What was the rationale for that rule? You know, rules take on a power of their own. They often long outlive the original rationale for which they were promulgated. This is called waiting for Napoleon. It comes from British history, the fact that the British government in 1803 created a man, literally, actually there were a collection of the men in rotation to stand on the cliffs of Dover, and when there wasn't fog, to watch with spyglasses across the channel to spot the Napoleonic armada, which they assumed was coming to invade Britain. Well, Napoleon got interested in Josephine and Egypt and eventually went to Russia and died a horrible death. We thought of venereal disease, now we think poisoning, in 1821. What happened to the job of the spyglass watchers? Those were maintained as sinecures by the British government until 1945 and were terminated only after Hitler self-immolated in his bunker and only after the invention of radar for military purposes 5 years previous to this. Now, every human organization has examples of waiting for Napoleon, and that's one of the things you look for in this process because you need smarter policies. We've learned that, ladies and gentlemen, this is America. You're never going to have enough resources to do everything you want for special needs students, special pleaders, and in particular for what are often described, there are lots of euphemisms for them, for example, minority students. I would argue that what matters more than what you do for subgroups is what you want to do for all your students. What, at a minimum, does your college want to promise to offer to all students? Do you have any required common experiences? Are you going to guarantee everybody some minimum level of experience other than parking and registration and your food service? All right? What is so educationally valuable that you want all students to have it? Perhaps the most important thing I've learned professionally is, and I was responsible for helping hundreds of colleges start various programs over the past 40 years. And I've learned that programs, these discrete, narrowly focused activities, I'm going to give you a list of them shortly, they're very important, they're helpful, they have a positive impact. But in and of themselves, they are not sufficient because they end up competing with each other and they're not coordinated. They trip all over each other. And none of them constitute a silver bullet. And instead, what I have found is that institutions need what most of them don't have, and that's a comprehensive plan for how you're going to integrate all these programs and how you're going to create successful students. Most institutions do what they do for new students as a result of tradition and an accumulated set of practices and policies over decades, not because they have a well thought out plan for it.